بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In last week's lesson we were looking at various ahadith with regards to the walima, with regards to the wedding feast, the wedding banquet which is given at the time of nikah, at the time of marriage. And I mentioned that this walima or this wedding banquet which is given by the husband is considered to be a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it is worth reminding that the ahadith which we listen to, the ahadith gathering or majlis which we are sitting in, it should be done with the intention of listening to the blessed words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also more importantly implementing and acting upon the blessed sunnah and the blessed ways and practices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how we can act upon or implement it in our lives. That is the whole purpose of listening to the hadith and listening to the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As all of you know, the month of Rabiul Awwal is going on. So many people, they do all these kind of talks on seerah, and unfortunately what's happening now is that our relationship with the seerah and with the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been restricted, or is being restricted only to the month of Rabiul Awwal. And the remaining 11 months, no one talks about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one talks about the blessed words or the blessed practices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a comparison can be drawn between the topic of the seerah and the month of Rabiul Awwal, and the Quran and the month of Ramadan. But what's happening nowadays is that the Holy Quran, we only read it during the month of Ramadan. And as soon as Ramadan finishes, as soon as we done one khatam, one completion, then no one would touch the Quran, no one would read a verse of the Holy Quran until the next month of Ramadan. And this kind of continues, this kind of cycle goes on and on. And the exact same pattern can be seen with regards to the seerah and the blessed words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that a lot of zohr is given during the month of Rabiul Awwal, meaning every single day there's a gathering, every single weekend there's a gathering or a majlis. But as soon as the month of Rabiul Awwal finishes, no one touches on the life and the practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And remember, the whole purpose of the seerah, the whole purpose of ahadith is how we can act upon it. So these ahadith which we are reading, obviously remember the whole purpose of us sitting in this gathering is to act upon the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and see whether or how we can implement it in our lives. Now the first hadith which we're going to look at in this week's lesson, again linked with the section of walima, narrated by Sayyiduna Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Sharru du'a," the evil of all foods. Du'aul walima is the invitation of a walima, yud'a lahal aghniya wa yutrakul fuqara, where the rich people are invited and the poor people are not invited. Now from this hadith we can derive etiquette and a ruling regarding walima, and that is that when it comes to walima and when it comes to inviting people for the walima, you should invite people from different backgrounds. It shouldn't be just high-class people or professional people like doctors, lawyers, lecturers, and then the people who work in the taxis or the restaurants, forget about them. But no, it should be a kind of a level playing field where people from different backgrounds and from different cultures are invited to the walima. It shouldn't be just the rich and the poor are forgotten, but instead it should be a mixture of rich people to your walima and also invite the poor people to your walima as well. Similarly, inviting like shuyukhs and pious people to your walima, and also you may have friends who may be from a professional background, there's nothing wrong with that, but there should be a kind of mixture. It shouldn't be, oh, walima only for my doctor associates or my lawyer associates, or just for example, you work in a solicitor firm, so only those who are solicitors, those who are lawyers can be invited to the walima, and the rest of the people you don't know. That is, as the hadith mentioned, is considered to be sharru ta'am. It's considered to be the evil of all foods. So what we can gather, again, this is another hidayat and a guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that for the walima, for the wedding feast, for the wedding banquet, the rich people should be invited and also the poor people should be invited. It shouldn't be such that only the rich are invited and the poor are not. And then the hadith finishes off by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, وَمَنْ تَرَكَ الدَّعْوَةَ فَقَدْ عَصَى اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, which means that whoever refuses the invitation, he indeed has disobeyed Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we read this in last week's lesson, that accepting a walima da'wat, a walima invitation, is sunnat al-muakkada. It's the emphasized sunnah. The other da'wat besides the walima is mustahab and desirable to accept. But the walima da'wat is considered to be an emphasized sunnah, and as we can see from the hadith, that whoever doesn't accept the walima da'wat, then he indeed has disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The next hadith which we are going to look at is the hadith which can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, narrated by the companion Abu Mas'ud al-Ansari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Now he once narrates that there was a person from the Ansar. Now remember, the Sahabas were of two. They were the Muhajiroons, those who migrated from Makkah to Medina Munawwara, and then you had the Ansar, i.e. the people of Medina Munawwara. Now there was a person from the people of Medina Munawwara, i.e. the Ansar, who was known as Abu Shu'ayb. Now hadith says, كَانَ لَهُ غُلَامٌ لَحَّابٌ. He had a slave, he had a gulam, lahab, jo gosht bechne wala tha, who would sell meat. That was the occupation. He would actually, sacrifice goats, sheep, and then its meat he would then sell it. So Abu Shu'ayb, he had a slave who would sell meat. Now Abu Shu'ayb then said to his slave, "Isna' li ta'aman yakfi khamsatan." Make me some food, yakfi khamsa, which is sufficient for 5 people. Sometimes when you do a takeaway order, or can you make food for 100 people, 150 people, or walima, dawat, invitation, can you make food for 300 people and so on. So here Abu Shu'ayb is saying to his slave that make me some food, but something which would be sufficient for 5 people to eat. One, لَعَلِّي أَدْعُوَ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ خَامِسَ خَمْسَ. Why? Because I want to invite Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come to my house for dawat, for food, for invitation. So therefore, make food for 5 people. I'm going to invite Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there would be 4 other people who would be eating with us. So therefore, I don't want you to make too much food, because then it becomes israf and extravagant and being wasteful. And I don't want you to make too less, so that it's not enough for anyone, but I want you to make food for 5 people. Now this is the main part of the hadith. The hadith goes on to say that Abu Shu'ayb then called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this is what happened. فَتَبِعَهُمْ رَجُلٌ. A person followed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I.e., there was another person, he wasn't invited. Abu Shu'ayb didn't invite him. He invited Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what happened? someone with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam just like came along. Sometimes it happens when you invite a big chef, he has a lot of murid. So the murid just came along. So similarly here as well, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was invited, but along with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, another person came who wasn't invited for the da'wah and the invitation. Now when they got to Abu Shu'ayb's house, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained, "Inna rajulan tabi'ana," that this person just followed me. I didn't tell him to come with me. I didn't, invite him with me. He just, mera picha kiya, he just like followed me. فَإِنْ شِئْتَ أَذِنْتَ لَهُ وَإِنْ شِئْتَ تَرَكْتَهُ. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Abu Shu'ayb that, look, it's up to you. If you want, you can invite him in and we could eat together. But if you don't want him to come to your house and eat, then so we will tell him to go. But Abu Shu'ayb, he had some raham and some mercy for this person. He said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Bal adintu lahu," I give him permission, he can come to my house and eat. There's another hadith similar to that, and then I'll explain the hadith together. Another hadith which can be found in Sunan Abu Dawud, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man du'iya falam yujib, faqad asa Allah wa rasulah," which means whoever is invited to a da'wat invitation, he doesn't accept, then he has disobeyed Allah and His Rasul. And now this is the important part of the hadith. وَمَنْ دَخَلَ عَلَى غَيْرِ دَعْوَةٍ. Whoever goes to an invitation, whoever goes to a da'wat without the invitation. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has used the word دَخَلَ سَارِقًا. He has entered the house as a thief, وَخَرَجَ مُغِيرًا, and he has left as a looter. Mughiran means a ghasib, a looter, like when you get all these youths, what happened just recently, so people breaking into the shops and taking the property and the mal from that shop. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam described that person who enters da'wat without invitation is like a thief in terms of discreetly he's entered. So when he's entering, he's acting like a thief, because when a thief, say for example, when he wants to break into a house, what does he do? He looks around, sees the whole clear, and then he breaks into a house. Similarly, just say that the invitation or a da'wat going on at a particular hall, a walima invitation. So this person is not being invited. So what does he do? He looks for the moment where no one's near to the door, and then he just quickly runs in, and then sits down on the table and starts eating. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described this person to be a sadiq, a thief, and وَخَرَجَ مُغِيرًا. And then when he leaves the da'wat after eating to his full and his belly full, then he has returned or he has left the da'wat as a mughir, i.e. as a looter. Now two hadiths which are mentioned here, this is very, very important. This is what we call hadith related to adab and akhlaq. And unfortunately this happens a lot, where you may have invited someone, just say you invited Abdul Rahman, but then when Abdul Rahman comes to your invitation, your da'wat, he brings another 2-3 people with him. It happens a lot that when you, say for example, give a walima invitation to someone, so in the walima invitation, your maqsad is to invite Abdul Rahman or this particular person there. Now if Abdul Rahman comes with an extra 2-3 people, then that is considered to be against the sunnah. You only those people should come to the walima or to the invitation, those who've been invited, and those who haven't been invited, then they should not come. Because when you look at it, just say for example, khas taur par when it comes to walima invitation, it's only set food, so the person only makes say khana for 300 people. Now if every single person was to bring one extra person, so you'll end up with 600 people in the walima, and he's only made food for 300 people, so the other 300 people, there will be some who actually had the proper invitation, they won't have enough food. So this is considered to be against manners and akhlaq, that you bring people to da'wats and walimas and to invitation because he happens to be your murid, he happens to be your friend or this and that, without him being invited. That is considered to be wrong and against the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, what we can gather from the first hadith is that what you can do is that if somebody does come along like this, you should then ask the mezban, i.e. the host, that look, this person has come, it's up to you. Do you let him come and have the food or da'wat with us, If the mezban, the host agrees, then there's nothing wrong with it. If it doesn't, then there's nothing wrong with it. But one thing important here is that you shouldn't really put the mezban or the host in that position where he needs to give the answer, can you come or can't I not come? Obviously the mezban is not going to say to that person, oh no, you can't come. What could happen is that there's actually less food, but then 2-3 people extra have come into your dawat or your invitation, so you won't be able to say to the people, oh no, you can't come up, Jao, it's going to be considered bad. So what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't really put the mezban or the host in that position where he needs to say to someone, or you can't come, or you have to come, whatever. So what we can derive from this particular hadith is that you should only invite, or only those people should come to the dawat and to the food who have been invited, because the second hadith, which are then thereafter recited, told us that those who enter without invitation, then it's as though they've entered as a sadiq, as a thief, وَخَرَجَ مُغِيرًا, and they have left as a mugir, i.e. as a looter. The next hadith which we're going to look at, hadith number 4, is a hadith which can be found in Sunan Ibn Majah and Musnad Ahmad. Now the hadith says that أَنَّ رَجُلًا طَوَافَ عَلِي بِنْ أَبِي طَالِبٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عنْهُ, that once a person was a mehman of Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, i.e. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu was making food, was having guests to his house. فَصَنَعَ لَهُ طَعَامًا, the hadith goes on to say that Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu made some food for this guest, for this mehman. فَقَالَتْ فَاطِمَةٌ, then Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha, the wife of Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, said, لَوْ دَعَوْنَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم, why don't we just call Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So they had guests coming in their house already, and there was quite a bit of food. So Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha then suggested to Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu that, look, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my father, rahmatul alameen, let's just call or invite Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to our house. فَأَكَلَ مَعَنَا, so that he can eat with us. The hadith then goes on to say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was invited, he came. He then placed his hand on the hinges of the door, and then he saw فَرَعَ الْكِرَامَ قَدْ ضُرِبَ فِي نَاحِيَةِ الْبَيْتِ. He then saw some curtains like you have on the door, on the window. He saw some curtains, and he then returned. فَرَجَعَ, he didn't enter. Rasulullah didn't enter the house. Hazrat Fatima saw this, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam coming, and then he peeped into my house, he saw my curtains, and then he left the house. What's happening here? So Hazrat Fatima then narrates, فَتَبِعْتُهُ, I then followed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, مَا رَدُّكَ, that why did you leave my house, why didn't you come and stay? Upon which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied by saying, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ لِي أَوْ لِنَبِيٍّ أَن يَدْخُلَ بَيْتًا مُزَوَّقًا, that it is not permissible for a Nabi, for a Prophet, to enter a house muzawwaqan, where there are pictures of living animals or of living beings. A Prophet cannot enter that particular house. So therefore, when I came into your house and I saw the curtain, there were some pictures of living animals there, living beings there. And because I've mentioned the hadith, that whenever there is a picture, a surah or a tasweer, angels do not enter that particular house. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmat and mercy doesn't shower in that particular building. So how can I, being a Nabi and a Prophet and a Messenger of Allah, enter a house where there's pictures of living animals and of living objects? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't enter that particular house. Now just a couple of things here before we look at the hadith regarding pictures. Now remember, if it's ghair zi ruh pictures of non-living animals, non-living objects, like pictures say of benches, books, mobile phones, trees, these kind of things, then these kind of pictures are allowed to keep in the house. Why? Because they're non-living and it would not stop the angels from coming into the house. So having those kind of pictures of Quran, pictures of books, pictures of bags, benches, these kind of things, non-living things, trees, sand, water, then to have them in the house, that is permissible, that is allowed. With regards to living animals or living objects, the ruling is that it is not permissible to have them in the house. And the reason why, as I just mentioned, because of that very famous hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that angels do not enter a house where there are pictures. So pictures which is of a living being, of an animated object, you can't have that in the house. And what is meant by picture here, this is also very important as well. Picture is something where it's got the face and it's got the eye. The main thing is based on the eye. If it's a picture where it's got the face but the eyes are not there or it's blotted out, that is not considered to be tasweer, that's not considered to be a picture. So a picture is something where it's got like human features there, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, these kind of things which a person from far would be able to tell that this is a picture of a living and an animated object. So to have those kind of pictures in the house, that is impermissible, that is not allowed. So that is with regards to pictures. I don't want to go into detail regarding this issue. Obviously, then there's other things about video recordings and so on. So some of our ulamas, our akabirin of the view that no, video recording is in the same ruling of pictures. So the same way to have pictures is a